Welcome to another week of a Friendly Nudge. So this week we're going to make a fennel and orange salad. And I love this. I've made it a couple times and it's now become one of these requested meals that I make. My daughter's like, okay, if you're when you volunteer to bring something, it's like, hey, bring that fennel salad again. So it's going to go together pretty quick. In fact, I think the video takes almost as long as it did to put the salad together. So we're going to do fennel, red onion, orange, Kalamata olives, some feta cheese, red wine vinegar, olive oil, salt, and pepper. And the red wine vinegar is going to be used to kind of tame the red onion, because I don't know about you, but raw red onion can kind of overpower a dish. So we're going to cut the onion first and kind of cut it thin and then let it hang out in some red wine vinegar to get tamed, so that it complements the meal instead of overtaking it. So just going to cut the ends of the onion off, and then I'm going to use a mandolin to slice the onion. You know, everybody that uses a mandolin has like mandolin stories about where they lost the tip of their finger. And it's like, I've got enough stories anyway. I don't need to add a mandolin story to that long list. So yeah, this thing it's a little clumsy. This thing, I probably need to wash it and shrink it a little bit. But yeah, I like that a whole lot better than I do trying to use the guard that comes with the mandolin, because that thing, I never end up using it, and then I always worry about leaving the tips of my fingers in the food. So I'm just going to put a lot of red wine vinegar on here. I'm not going to use all these onions in the salad, but then I'll have some pickled onions to use later on in the week for other dishes. So I'm just going to cut the ends of the fennel off, and you can save that. You know, you can use the fronds on top of another salad. It adds kind of a licorice or an anise flavor. And then I'm just going to cut the tough ends of the fennel off, and then we'll let the mandolin do the rest of the work. And, you know, you could use a sharp chef's knife to do this. This just makes it a lot easier. And then, you know, we're going to use the knife to cut the skin, and then that kind of the pith or the membrane off of the orange. These are Cara oranges that I get at Costco, but you can use navel oranges, you could use blood oranges. And then, yeah, once again, just going to try to get as much of that membrane out as I can. Probably a paring knife or something just a little bit smaller than the chef's knife would be a little easier to do this job. But, you know, I managed to make it work without, you know, losing any digits. So that was good. And then, yeah, just going ahead and try and cut the rest of that out of there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My son's a chef, and he would probably cringe if he saw this treatment, because it's like, yeah, you need to be a little more exacting than that. But, you know, I'm not on Chopped, so I'm not worried about getting voted off the show. So yeah, just trying to pull a couple of those little pieces off. Yeah, go ahead and get that snipped out there. All right. And then, you know, now we're just going to build the salad in the bowl. And I'm going to put the fennel in, and then we'll start putting some onions in. I'm trying to pull onions more from underneath the surface there, because the ones on the top probably weren't quite as pickled. But, you know, at some point I get a little frustrated, and it's like, all right, we'll take some off the top as well. And then, yeah, I'm just going to save what's left with the vinegar, and then I'll use this later, you know, for other foods, because I love pickled onions as kind of an addition to a meal, just to kind of, you know, brighten one up. So adding those orange pieces to the mix, and then I'm going to go, you know, fairly liberally with the olive oil here, because I'm not adding vinegar to it. There's a little bit of vinegar from the onions, and then you've got the acidity from the orange pieces. So there's a nice balance with this. Adding some fresh cracked pepper, and then I'm going to use some salt. And then we're going to get that kind of mixed up. And then we're going to add the Kalamata olives. And, you know, the olives just add kind of a nice briny counterpoint. You know, you certainly don't have to put them in there. I just think it kind of rounds it out. And then we're going to, when we're finished with this, we're going to add some feta cheese. Because this, once again, is kind of funky, salty. And you know, this is also, it's an optional addition, but I think it really helps. This is delicious. Please have a wonderful week and play with your food.